Welcome to Woodgate Valley Country Park. This is a 450-acre site of rewilded agricultural land just on the southern edge of Birmingham. I'm going to start my journey through the park here at the western edge, or the western end of the park. And just behind me is Carter's Lane, Woodgate Lane, and then coming down to the entrance of the park is Watery Lane. From there I'm going to make my way through the path and just discuss some of the changes that have occurred since I first moved here nearly 50 years ago. Somewhere in amongst all of that greenery is the opening that takes the water, the catchment water, from the surrounding area, from the higher areas up by the old crown, from the roads, from the brook, and it all comes out here, empties into the Bourne Brook. So this is what we'll call the start. So the official footpath for the Bourne Brook, or the Bourne Brook Way, is this one off to my left. When they started redeveloping the park, they put in the cycle path, which is this one here, and that's what I'm going to follow. That path is more like a bridle way, so it's quite rough, it's for horses, and I'm going to follow the easy path. So this definitely would have been one of our tasks growing up. So this water pipe, this is only a short section of it, it just goes underneath the bridleway here. But a little bit further on into the greenery, there's another section of this pipe work that then goes for what felt like miles, but it's probably only 20 or 30 metres to an inspection hatch a bit further through. But yeah, this is one of the things that we do. We come up here with our torches and see how far up the pipe we dared go. This entire area has been used for agriculture for hundreds of years, and many of the areas around here still bear the name of the farms that work the land. Ford Dwelling Farm was roughly located where the school of the same name is, and similarly Howley Grange. Moving north through what is now Quinton, from the Old English meaning either the Queen's Farm or the Queen's Town, you have World's End Farm and Moat Farm. Nonsuch Farm gave its name to the school on Woodgate Valley South, and there was Moor Farm, which would have been where the Masonettes are at the end of Tibbets Close. That stretch of Summerfield Road that goes from where the old 23 terminus used to be up to Clapgate Lane is still there, is showing on maps in the 1800s. One of the last remaining farms is Hull Farm, which is still operational. It's a riding school now, and also the centre for the urban farm that sort of feeds. It's not part of Woodgate Valley Country Park, but it's open to visitors from the farm. When we were growing up, that farm we used to refer to as Macready's Farm. It's always been stables. The north bank of the Bourne Brook was never really that interesting to me growing up. That was always quite overgrown anyway, so there was always a lot of bushes and trees, and it's quite steeply banked. Not a lot of agriculture, not a lot of farming going on over there. And of course it went up into Quinton. So on the south side of the brook, which is the side I'm on now, this is where the farming was. So it was all flat, there was lots of fields, and of course the estate I grew up on was on this side. So there was more for us to do. And also it widens out more on this side, on the south side. So on the south side there, you've got several layers of fields going up to Clapgate Lane. On the right side, it just stops at Quinton for the entire length of the valley. So that side was never really that interesting. So I'm going to take a walk along the south bank and talk about some of the things that I find interesting, some of the things that have changed. Though it's been open for 40 years now as a country park, the development of it's sort of gone in spits and starts. So one of the first things they did was they replanted a lot of trees and bushes and the like, and then they did nothing with it for, I don't know, 10 years or so. Then they closed off all the entrances to traffic, so they made sure that people couldn't drive cars on here. Now growing up, I won't say it was a problem, but quite often we'd come down to the brook and there'd be a car in it that had been stolen and then obviously disposed of in that manner. So they closed off all those entrances. And then The most recent thing they did is probably put down this this cycle path here that we're walking on. So this forms part of the National Cycleway now. All right, chap. But between those two events, so the closing off of the vehicle traffic and the lane of this cycle path, they started to take out all the weirs. Sort of every, I don't know, 20, maybe 50 metres, there was a crossing point for the brook, and it consisted of a weir and then stepping stones across the water. Probably one here. This looks like a likely spot. So the only reason I'm saying that, I honestly can't remember, it's been so long, but any of these open spaces like this where it's open on both sides, there was probably a weir there, which is why it's open, which is why there's not much growing there. And every bridge had one as well. So yeah, so they was taking out the weirs, and I asked, you know, why they were doing this. And it was part of the sort of the restocking of the brook. So what they were doing, they put things like sticklebacks and small fish at the top, and then every time it rained heavy, and bear in mind when it rains heavy here, certainly when we were kids, we come down, the grass would be flattened all the way up, and it's sort of like for 10, 15 metres either side of the brook. It's not a big brook where the water had just washed everything away. So every time we had a rain like that, all the wildlife that they put in at the top would get washed down and then couldn't swim back upstream because of the weirs. So they removed the weirs and they put other water management features in there. So areas where it just gets really shallow. So they built it up so it's more of a trickle going over the edge. And that just allows the wildlife to move along it. And it's working because we see much more like bird wildlife. There's egrets down here. I saw a kingfisher here a couple of years ago just scooting at the brook. That was really early. Yeah, they're doing a good job. So where I'm standing now, at one point back in the 70s, early 80s, was a football pitch, would you believe? So yeah, this area down here. But the problem is every time it rained, it turned into a swamp. So about 2-3 years ago, they made the decision just to hand it over as a wetland. So they dug out some shallow pools. Obviously they're dry at the moment, we're in the middle of the summer. But they just do actually encourage and allow this area to flood as a wetland now as part of some sort of natural rivers and lakes regeneration. All of this around the outside, all the greenery that you can see, that was all replanted about 30, 40 years ago. Part of that was to help prevent the local youths from battling each other over the bridge, which is just over the back there. So originally, the bridge actually spanned across there. It was a wooden bridge. The brickwork you can see is the foundations, and there was the same over this side. So this is the middle of 3 bridges that cross the Bourne Brook in Woodgate Valley Country Park. Up on the left there, on the north side, is Quinton, and over on the south side is Woodgate Valley. So during the, I'd say, early to mid 80s, this bridge, not this exact bridge, that one that was over there, the wooden one, became a sort of stake in the ground between youths on the Quinton side and youths on the Woodgate side over ownership of this bridge. And we'd literally fight. So none of these trees were here, so you'd have 100 kids over there, 100 kids over there, all lined along the bank where the trees are at the moment, chucking bricks and shouting insults at each other, and occasionally beating the crap out of each other if somebody got caught. The bridges were taken down and burnt. This one was rebuilt, and then the troubles continued, so people still carried on fighting over this bridge. And even now, kids of a certain age will refer to this as their bridge, or you know, they will stand on their bridge. It's a much nicer place to visit now. I've just briefly stepped away from the park, so I'm just over there, just to step into this bit of a meadow, I guess, here. This is, I remember, it used to mainly be used for grass, which I assume was to feed the cattle. There was a lot of cattle farming here when we first moved on. One of the weird things about this particular field is it was always catching fire, always on fire. Every summer it would go up. One of the things that's changed quite a lot about Woodgate, and I noticed it with my own children, is that we used to come down here, this particular area here, which I'm not going to be able to get to. It used to be one of the best ponds for finding frogs and newts on the whole of Woodgate. This was one of the best places to come to. There was another couple of good areas up by the visitor centre. It doesn't look like we can get down to it, but I remember bringing my kids here sort of 20 years ago for exactly that reason. You know, let's go see if we can find some frogs and newts and stuff, and there was just nothing here. It was dead. It doesn't even look like there's a pond here anymore. Or maybe it's just dried up. It is summer. It shows how a well-managed area can regenerate though. So when we were growing up, it didn't change. This was always just a big field, one little boggy swamp in the middle of it. That just goes through to the path by the look of it, yeah. One little boggy swamp in the middle of it. And for years it just stayed like that. But now look at it, look how much it's grown because it's been managed. This is the third of the 3 bridges that cross the Bourne Brook on Woodgate. This was contested equally as violently by the kids either side of Woodgate Valley. I think because it was a little less open on either side, most of the trouble happened at the middle bridge. Just coming up on another locally famous area when we were kids. Everybody will know this is the Scrambler. So this again has been heavily rewilded and repopulated. So you can't even get down to the water at the moment. So as I'm just going up this incline here, the land's starting to fall off to the left of me, down to the water's edge. So none of these trees were here. It was all, I say none of them, there was a few trees here, but this was all very, very sparsely populated, and it was all dirt tracks, so people would come down here on their little mopeds, on their push bikes. There weren't BMXs at the time. It was before then, but when BMX did come along, this is where everybody would be, and it would be absolutely full of kids in the summer. I'll see if I can get down to the water. Here's a relic. This tree stump, I believe, was part of the hollow tree that used to stand here. It was burnt out on the inside. There's a bit of a theme going in, isn't there? There's a lot of fires around Woodgate. But that particular tree, I think it was a lightning strike or something like that. It was hollow inside. It's sort of trying to get down to the edge, but what I really want to show is the land itself. So you can see there's a drop there, and then a slight flat bit, and then a drop again down to the water. And then so you've got quite a bank, only 3 or 4 foot, that comes up from the water's edge, and then you've got a nice steep, don't know how well this is coming across, but all of these steep sections that are going up, and this is basically where we used to play on our bikes, and it would just be up and down these trails all day. The area down here, a little bit of a pond there, so this was all open and sort of like a stone riverbed. But the thing is, the brook comes in and then spread out over about 40, no not 40, yeah maybe 40 feet. Oh, I might be able to, there's the water there. Okay. So we've got the remains of another weir here. So yeah, the brook itself, where it used to come in and just fill this entire area spread out, has now sort of rechanneled itself into a proper at-depth stream. just stepped off the path alongside the brook for a few minutes just to come into this bit of meadow here. So up on the hill there, that is Hillcrest Girls' School. Used to be Hillcrest Girls' School, I'm not sure what it is now. It's still a school, just don't know whether it's only girls. That is the site of an old brickwork. So this area is known for bricks and nails, which was, apart from agriculture, was the non-agricultural industries prevalent throughout the 1700s, 1800s and early 1900s. And this was the site of the main brickworks. So all this area around the back here, and if you look at the way that, you won't see it, but the way the front drops off from the school is the old quarry works, where they dig the clay for the bricks. This section down from Bridge 3 to West Boulevard, I don't really remember that much about this area down here, other than when they started building West Boulevard. Because like kids everywhere, as soon as there's a building site, you want to be on it. And it's still known as the New Road. Everybody my age refers to it as the New Road, and their children refer to it as the New Road as well. I know that because I was talking to the child of an old timer like myself who works at a local vets, and she was trying to explain West Boulevard to me. And I said, well, I'll show my age, I still call that the New Road. She said, I still call it the New Road, but I didn't think anybody else did. So behind me is one of the reasons why I came down this far. I was going to stop at West Boulevard, but I was running along this path last weekend, and I spotted this and I hadn't realised it was here. I've run past it many times. I've obviously been in a different zone, but I realised that behind me is one of those weirs, and I think this is probably the last remaining weir of this type, certainly on Woodgate. But yeah, Woodgate Valley Country Park. I don't know if there's some further down. So they were all fairly straightforward, 4 simple stone steps to cross the water, going down into a, try and get the shade in, going down into a slightly deeper area, and then eventually meandering out the other end. I really hope they don't get rid of this one, and that's purely nostalgia. I mean, I don't know whether ecologically or environmentally there's a sound reason to get rid of it or keep it, but nostalgically I want them to keep it. So yeah, this is the actual path as they'd have been like on both sides of the stream growing up. Just a worn dirt path maintained by footfall. People walk on it, they wear it down, and it keeps the path as a path. And this is an ancient bridleway, an ancient pathway. The Bourne Brook used to form the border between the old Anglo-Saxon counties of Worcestershire and Staffordshire. And you get a bit more of a wild feel on this side because the path's not so maintained, and it is just a bridleway. It's a little bit more overgrown, it's a little bit muddier, so it feels a little bit more real. So rather than walk along the brook, along the path we've already came, once we get down to the middle bridge, you can cut across the fields diagonally and you come to Woodgate Valley Visitor Centre. So this little sunken pond here was really good for frogs, but most people know it as the mini pond. There was always a mini wedged halfway down the hill. God knows how it got there. I believe this is potentially a collapsed air shaft from the old Lappel Tunnel. If you look at the map, you can see where the air shaft is marked, and when I overlay that onto the Ordnance Survey, it looks roughly where this pond is. I can't remember whether it's the exact same site, but certainly in this general location there used to be a cricket pavilion, an old wooden cricket pavilion. I don't know whether people remember that. That mysteriously burnt down way back in the early 80s, I want to say. Yeah, it'd have been about 11, 12, so early 80s. I regularly run and walk over these fields. It's a route over to my dad's house from where I live. But normally when I do the journey, I'm not really looking at it with the nostalgic eye that I've sort of walked around on this journey with. And it surprised me how established it feels. It doesn't, in my head it was a work in progress. It was something that was under development. But as I walk around and I've gone down the length of the brook, and I've identified some of the areas that we used to play in as kids, and they don't feel like they were ever those areas. They feel like they've always been what they are now, and they weren't. You know, the areas where the Weir does, with maybe one or two exceptions, it doesn't feel like there was ever a Weir there. So when you go down to the last Weir, it feels odd. It's an anachronism. It feels out of place. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed this little walk, but I think I'm going to call it a day now and head back home. If you enjoyed it, if you enjoyed this little walk through my childhood and through Woodgate Valley Country Park, you know what to do. Like and subscribe, thumbs up and all that stuff. Let me know in the comments what you thought, whether you think I should do more of these type of videos, or whether you should think I should go and put them on a different channel. So for now, I'm going to say stay safe, have fun, and I'll see you on the next one.